Good afternoon. I am so grateful to be here this afternoon and to have the opportunity to share with each of you the power of choice. I want to share with you an excerpt from the prologue of Choosing Hope to start off. Ever since I was a little girl and my mom introduced me to Robert Frost, I have loved the poem The Road Not Taken. In that poem, Frost famously wrote, "I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverge in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. When I reached a crossroads in my journey, back from that terrible day in 2012, I chose hope, and that has made all the difference." My name is Kaitlin Roig-Debellis, and this is my story. This afternoon, I want to share with you the power of choice. For there is a choice you have to make in everything you do. So keep in mind that in the end, the choice you make makes you. I want to share with you 4 key components that I have found to be crucial in my own life. They each revolve around choice: choosing your purpose, knowing it, following it, choosing your perspective of how to view the world around you, choosing to overcome your own hard times, and choosing hope within them. Life is all about choice, and the choice is each of ours alone to make. In sharing these key components, I share with you my story as a teacher, as a learner, as a leader, my story as a survivor. I share it with you because I know that it will make a difference in how you view each minute, each moment, each day, when you are truly aware that your life can change in an instant. I share it with you because in life we each have a very definite purpose. My story today is one of an educator. That is who I have always been at my core. Before high school or college, I knew my passion and my purpose was to work with children, to ensure and enable their success. This knowledge guided me in every choice and decision that I made. We each have goals and ambitions at our core, and it is of the utmost importance that we strive to define them, for it is only then that we are able to actively pursue them. Choosing your purpose. The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. Pablo Picasso. We each come to define our purpose when we answer these questions. Who are we? What are our goals, desires, ambitions? What is it that we wish to become? Following the events of December 14th, I was left reeling, struggling to regain control and purpose for myself and for my students. I stand with you today as a first grade teacher, as someone who has taught for 10 years, 7 in the traditional classroom setting, and 3 abroad. What is at the core of this is I have known my purpose since the age of 5. I started following it at the age of 10 as a mother's helper, a babysitter, a nanny, a camp counselor monitor, daycare facilitator, youth volunteer, mentor, reading buddy, study hall monitor, athlete tutor, student teacher, intern, and at long last, a teacher. I want to share with you just a small part of what being a teacher has always meant to me, as it has always been my purpose. Being a teacher means giving of yourself to your students. It means making someone else's life richer. As teachers, we know that it is the first of our jobs in a long list of titles. We are our students' support, their educator, their mentor, at times even their parent. More importantly, though, we are happy to be each of these things, to wear each of these hats. We welcome the responsibility with open arms. As teachers, we are the difference makers in our students' lives. We intervene when 2 of our students aren't seeing eye to eye. We enable a student struggling with self-image to find something to feel good and confident about. We build a caring community within our classrooms where everyone feels safe and welcome and part of the team. We are the difference makers. As teachers, we are the role models in our students' lives. Our students will decide that they love coming to school every day because of our passion. Ultimately, they may decide to follow our lead and become teachers themselves because of our modeling and enthusiasm. Being a teacher is a gift that we get to give every single day. The gift, of course, is twofold. While we give many gifts to our students, they give back tenfold. When a student hands you a homemade card, an award that they've made, or fresh flowers that they picked out of their mother's garden, it is we as their teachers who receive those gifts. Likewise, when a student finally does something for the very first time, learns to spell the tricky spelling word, or finally reads that chapter book they have been struggling with all year, it is we as their teachers who receive those gifts. It reminds me of one of my favorite sayings: the gift is truly in the giving. I was recently asked What would the world be like without teachers? If we think about that for a minute. What would our world be like without teachers? When I was asked this question, without hesitation, I replied, it wouldn't work. Teachers, you see, are the common denominator in our world. Everyone starts in school. You and me, doctors, lawyers, businessmen and women, the president of our country began in school. And it was teachers who enabled their dreams to come to fruition. Teachers are, in fact, why the world works. I always knew that this was my dream. My childhood dream did become a reality, and my story may be quite similar to yours. Choosing your perspective. We are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars. Oscar Wilde. I was born on October 31st, 1983. Although being that I'm adopted, I did not meet my parents until nearly 2 months later on December 23rd, or Kate's Day, as my parents aptly named it. They awoke that morning filled with so much excitement and joy to pick up their baby girl whom they had waited years for. And yet upon waking, they found that my dad's mother, who lived with them at the time, had passed away in her sleep, a completely tragic morning, and yet the morning they were to become parents. When I asked my parents about this, they both reflect that they brought me home that afternoon and sat on the couch for hours, passing me back and forth, and crying, asking one another, are these tears of joy, or tears of sadness? They answered one another honestly that they were both. I choose to begin my story here because the day I went home with my parents is a true example of the balance found in life. There are highs and lows, there is good and bad. On any one day, in any one moment, both are always present. It is a choice which to focus on. I have always considered being adopted my greatest blessing. We know in life that the greatest gifts are not objects, things, or possessions. Someone somewhere knew that I would have a better life and selflessly gave me up so that I may have it. This was always the way I viewed being adopted, as the most positive thing. Our perspective is incredibly powerful. Outlook determines how we react or not to every situation in our lives. We have the choice. We alone hold the power. We can choose to focus on our many blessings, on the abundant good that is all around. Having this perspective will make the hard times, the bumps in the road, feel that much more approachable. It will make the impossible feel possible. I am grateful that I learned this lesson on perspective at an early age, for it truly shaped my outlook. My parents provided me with all the love, care, and support in the world. They taught me 2 lessons that I carry with me to this very day. The first is that we each have many gifts to give, and that it is our responsibility to give them. And the second is that everyone has a story. Everyone has a varied perspective of how to view the world around them, and that we need to be really good listeners in order to hear one another's. As I said, my story of wanting to be a teacher begins at the age of 5. I was always so curious about the other children I saw at the mall, the movies, the park. I remember at 5 very seriously going to my father and asking if I could babysit for the little boy next door, who was 3. When my father replied that this would not be possible, I did not understand. I knew my purpose and I wanted to follow it. I spent my youth and adolescence, as I said, acting out my adult life, first playing teacher and then holding every single job imaginable working with children, until at the age of 17 it was time to leave for the University of Connecticut. At the age of 22, I graduated with my master's in elementary education, armed to go off and have my very first class. As all first-year teachers know, I spent the month of August busily preparing my classroom. I hung bright posters and birthday charts, bus lists. I wanted everyone who entered our classroom to feel as warm and welcome as I did. The end of August arrived, and Miss Roig, room 12, was proudly displayed on the plaque outside our door. 18 first graders filed into our classroom. I don't know who was more excited, them or me. We spent our first day learning the routines of our classroom and our school. We learned one another's names. We shared about our summers. We ate lunch in the cafeteria for the very first time. It was official. We were a class, and the dream was even more amazing than I could have ever imagined. I spent the next 7 years gaining multiple experiences. I worked with my grade level team, refined curriculum, started a running club for 3rd and 4th grade students. I did as we as teachers do, kept learning and growing so that I could better serve my students and do my job. I started my 7th year teaching happier than I had ever been. I had just gotten engaged over the summer, and life and its possibilities seemed truly endless. The year was passing rapidly, filled with so much excitement and anticipation. As you know, when you are engaged to marry the love of your life, it is a daily countdown. 320, 245, 180. On December 14th, 2012, that countdown came to a screeching halt. Choosing to overcome. I have never felt that anything really mattered, but the satisfaction of knowing that you stood for the things in which you believed and had done the very best you could. Eleanor Roosevelt. That Friday, I awoke ready to tackle the day. As I hurried to leave, something stopped me in my tracks. I dropped my things, grabbed my phone, and walked over to the sliders. The sun began rising peacefully over Long Island Sound. I snapped a picture of that sight filled with a sense of peace and calm. Even more excited to start my day, I rushed out the door. Not even 3 hours later, my sense of peace, calm, and happiness were forever changed. As my students and I sat in our morning meeting in the first classroom in the school, we had just finished listening to Oklahoma's Oh, What a Beautiful Morning. We had just finished greeting one another when very loud, rapid-fire shots began over and over and over. I knew that something very evil was in imminent proximity of my students and myself. The possibility that your life can change in an instant is, of course, always there, sometimes fortuitously so and others not. Your car changing lanes before avoiding a head-on collision, leaving your home moments before it burns to the ground, finding a miraculous cure after suffering a long illness. Of course, the change can be for the worse. Your car being sideswiped on the highway, a loved one unexpectedly passing, an angry man entering a school whose only intention is to take as many innocent lives as possible. I knew that something very evil was in imminent proximity to my students and myself. Time was of the essence. If we were going to survive, we had to hide and fast. We piled into a 3-by-4-foot bathroom and we waited. Today, I will not go into the details of what we heard, of what we endured. It is simply not necessary. But I will use my own darkest hour to encourage you to always get through your own. As I stood surrounded by my precious 5, 6, and 7-year-old students, my mind went to what was at my very core. I thought of my fiance. I thought of the wedding dress I had just bought. I thought of the beach we were to be married on the following August 16th, and I thought I cannot leave him. He will not be okay. What do you do? What do you do in a moment where all of your control has been taken from you, where you are terrified, shaking, surrounded by babies? What on earth is there to do? So I said to my students, if you believe in the power of prayer, you need to pray right now. And if you believe in something else, you need to imagine the very best. I closed my eyes, I put my hands together, and I began to pray. Some of my students prayed with me, and others thought really happy thoughts, and the shooting continued all around us. Eventually, after about 45 minutes, the shooting had stopped. A very eerie quiet had taken over. There was no relief in it when a knock came at our door. Terror struck as I had no idea who was on the other side, and I whispered to a student to ask who was there. I did not want a madman to know that there were 16 terrified people huddled behind that space. My student asked, and as you would respond to a small child, the voice said, "Hey, little fella, little buddy, please open the door. It's the police. We're here to help you." At that point, I spoke and I said, "If you are the police, I need your badge." They immediately slipped it under the door, and as I held it in my hand, I could not believe. Not after the evil we had heard. I said, "I don't believe you. This does not look real. We're not opening the door. If you were really the police, you would have the keys and you would be able to get us out." They had the master keys at that point, and they tried 7, 8, 9 different keys, and eventually the door unlocked. We were greeted by an entire SWAT team in our classroom. I used to say at this point in my story that I will never know who was more surprised by the sight they saw. However, last summer I was speaking at a school in New Jersey, and after a woman came up to me, a teacher, and she said, "I just want you to know that my husband's best friend led that SWAT team into your classroom that day, and he has no words for the sight he saw." I'm so grateful to that woman for telling me that. Because up until that point, I did not believe that we had made it out onto the other side of that door, and now, in fact, I know that we did. In the days and weeks following, I was left searching for answers that would never come. My sense of safety, of security were completely gone. I was a complete shell of myself. I could not go into a gas station, a grocery store. I couldn't be alone. If my fiance at the time wanted to go somewhere, he had to call someone to come over and babysit me. It was infuriating. On December 13th, I had been the most independent person. My sense of safety, of security were completely gone. And at the same time, I was walking around trying to answer the whys. Why did this happen? Why our school? Why beautiful lives? Why? Eventually, I came to realize I was never going to answer those whys, not then, not now, not ever, and that instead I needed to focus my energy on questions that could be answered. For so many of us, especially during the dark times, we spend so much time focusing on questions that will never be answered, and that we forget there are so many that can, and that there is so much power in that. For myself, there were two questions I absolutely had to answer. The first was, how do I make sure this day does not define my students and myself? The second was, how do we get our control back? Those two questions were my guiding light. They drove me in every single thing that I did. At first, it was just getting out of bed in the morning. You see, time, the essence of time, after you endure a tragedy, a trauma, and we all do, it doesn't change it, it doesn't diminish it, it just puts space between you and it. It is there, it is constant, it is always. All one can do is to make a conscious choice to focus on the abundant good that is also all around. Do you appreciate the grass under your own 2 feet, or yearn for the grass on the other side of the fence? Do you curse the rain, or do you praise it for bringing you beautiful flowers? Optimism is a choice. It is our choice alone to make. When I thought of my students, I knew we had to make a choice. I knew that after all the evil we had endured, that we absolutely had to choose to focus on the positive. And as their teacher, I needed to find a way to teach that to them. Choosing hope. Hope is being able to see that there is light despite all of the darkness. Desmond Tutu. When we returned to our new school on January 3rd, we were overwhelmed with gifts. And after giving and giving to my students for about a week and a half, I stepped back and I realized that if I did not take this as a teachable moment to teach my kids that in life when you get, you have to give. That in life when someone does for you, it is your responsibility to do for someone else, that I was completely missing the mark as their teacher. And so one day that's exactly what we did. We decided that we were going to pay it forward. We had gotten, and now was our chance to give back. And we reached out to a class in Tennessee. We asked, how can we help? What do you need? They said we would love a Mimeo-Teach, which is similar to a smartboard. We mailed them the funds to get that. Upon receiving it, they were so thankful and grateful for what we had done that they then reached out to a class in Arizona and mailed them whiteboards and markers and erasers. And those were the initial 3 projects of the nonprofit organization, Classes for Classes. Classes for Classes was founded on the belief that when we actively engage children in being compassionate, empathetic, and kind, there simply isn't room for hate. It's tangible experience. We are web-based. It is a place for kids to showcase all of the incredible things that they are doing within their classroom to help raise money for another classroom's gift. And all of the projects are crowd-funded. We've had some truly amazing projects, field trips, smartboards, iPads. There is no right or wrong. And at the end of the day, the best gift is that the kids are learning that our lives are all in fact connected, that we have a real commitment to one another, to helping one another, to make sure that those around us have what they need to be successful. As I look to the future, I am filled with many feelings, the greatest of which is hope. Hope is extremely powerful. It is the reason we get out of bed every morning. Hope is the reason we are all here today. Hope is the reason we embark on any task, job, or mission. We take on a home improvement project because we hope it will make our home more welcoming. We decide to volunteer each week because we hope we can make a difference. We decide to become teachers because we hope we can be the change in children's lives. Hope is the driving force. I hope for a healthy and happy life with my husband. We wed on August 16th of 2013. I hope to have children of my own. I hope to continue spreading Classes for Classes and the message of hope across the United States and around the world. Having hope means you choose to believe. It means even if times are bad, you are hopeful that they will get better. And if times are good, you are hopeful that they will remain, for you are aware that nothing in this life is ever promised. As is in one of my favorite childhood stories of mice and men, the best laid plans can often falter. I could have never planned for the events of December 14th, and after, found myself on a very new path with no plan. We will each find ourselves there. When I found myself there, I made two choices that led me in a very new and hopeful direction. That day would not define us, and that we would get our control back. In doing so, it led me to found classes for classes, to help kids learn to care about other kids. It led me to speak to audiences around the globe and to share the message, the importance of teachers in children's lives. It led me to write Choosing Hope. We each have the power to make those good choices in our own lives, and it is completely up to us. As Gandhi so eloquently said, you must be the change you wish to see in our world. We each can be that change if we choose our purpose, know it, follow it, work really, really hard at it. Choose to always have a positive perspective of how you view the world around you, no matter what happens. Choose to always overcome your own hard, dark times, and choose hope within them. Life is all about choice. The choice is ours to make. It's such an honor to be here with fellow teachers. I hope that you enjoy the afternoon. Thank you so very much.